what is emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence, there are many definitions, but overall, in general, is the capacity to be aware of our emotions. So it's knowing our emotions and regulate them, motivate ourselves, and leverage empathy to have more effective social relationships. Something that I say in my classes, in my training, that really emotional intelligence is a leadership skill that can be learned and it should be practiced so that you can develop it. So let's talk about the main component of emotional intelligence. There are many authors on emotional intelligence, and some of them list, from 3 components all the way to 10 components. But here are the 5 most known components of emotional intelligence. The first 3, I call them the self trio, and they are self-awareness, which is the ability to know ourselves, to understand our emotion, how we come across, what we say, what we do. Then self-regulation, which is our ability to control our emotions and control how we show up. And then self-motivation, which is the ability to motivate ourselves. It is said that people that are very highly successful, for example, in the sports here in the US, Michael Phelps in swimming in the Olympics, are people that have very high levels of self-motivation, which means that people don't need to obligate them to do things, but they have the motivation, the fire, the desire, the fuel to do it themselves. Then we have, we have interpersonal skills, social skills. Then we have empathy. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about empathy, and I'm going to give you some tips to be more empathetic. So let's talk about empathy. So empathy, here I have a very, very long definition of empathy, and I'm going to read it here for you and with you. But empathy is the action of it is the action of understanding, being aware of, being sensitive to, and vicariously experiencing the feelings, thoughts, and the experience of another, either in the past or present, without having the feelings, thoughts, and experience fully communicated in an objectively explicit manner. As you can see, that's a very, very long definition, but it's actually very important because it has a lot of important components that I'm going to talk about here today. But in conclusion, an easy way to think of empathy is that it is a decision to feel in union, also to think in union, or to experience in union with another person, even if that person does not provide all of the details, and regardless of whether their situation reflects your own situation or not. Let's talk about why empathy is important. So when folks are young and are coming into the workplace, working for very high, for very big companies, very competitive, corporations, multinational corporations, they may ask, okay, how can I be successful? And it is very common that, more experienced leaders and coaches will say, hey, you need to focus on yourself, focus on yourself, focus on yourself. And when we get that instruction, that order to focus on yourself, we end up focusing on ourselves. But focus on ourselves can be a good thing because it's good to focus on yourself. But just like everything, there can be too much focus on yourself, where then it becomes a leadership limitation when you are too focused on yourself, right? If you are excessively focused on yourself, you're going to have limitations as a leader. Why is that? Well, I'll give you 2 examples. One is that if we are too focused on ourselves, we end up falling in love with our own world. So then, we are, everything that we think is important is what has to do with our own world. So when somebody's talking to us, when they talk to us, our brain is scanning to see if there is a connection between what the person is telling me and my own world. So, if what the person is telling me has a connection with my world, then yes, it's relevant. I pay attention, I lean in, I connect, I'm interested. But if what the person is telling me has no connection with my own world, then I am not interested. It's not relevant. I check out. Basically, the person is speaking to me and I'm thinking about something else. It's like when you are in a meeting and you are saying something very interesting, and what you think is interesting, you're excited about an idea, and when you finish talking and the next person starts talking, the next person says something that has nothing to do with what you said. Basically, the person wasn't interested in your world, the person was interested in their own world, and that's a limitation problem. The second example is that we also have a fact checker, sorry, so that when people are talking to us, every time they're telling us something, our brain is checking to know whether that's true or not. And the reason, and how we determine whether something is true or not is if it coincide with something you yourself have experienced. So if somebody says something to you, oh, it's very expensive to travel to France. You say, yeah, I know, because I was buying a ticket and it is very expensive. So basically, you tend to only believe the things that have happened to you. But there are many, many things that have not happened to you, are not happening to you now, and will never happen to you, that are still true. And what happens is that then we have difficulty believing the things that people tell us that we have not seen with our own eyes. But there are many things that we have not seen with our own eyes that are true, and we need to believe those as well. All right, so I'm going to move now to give you an example. So I live here in the northern part of the US, in the state of Minnesota, where it can be very cold. So when people say the expression, I'm cold, we tend to then activate a fact checker to see if it's really that cold. So we basically activate like a thermometer in ourselves, and then we decide whether it is in fact cold enough for that person to be cold. So the person says, oh, I'm cold, and we say, no, it's not cold. And the person says, no, hold on a second. I didn't say that it was cold. I said I am cold, because I'm not talking about how it is. I'm talking about how I am. It may not be cold, but I am cold. It may be warm, but I am cold, because I don't need for it to be cold for me to be cold. I can be cold independently. So when somebody is cold, it's not necessary for you to be cold to, for that person to actually be able to be cold, but the person can be cold independently, because that person may be cold because something is happening to the person. Maybe the person has a problem, is freaking out because they are in panic because something could be happening to them at home, at work. And we just need to be understanding, and we need to accept the fact that the person is cold regardless of whether you are cold or not, because the experiences are unique and independent. Okay, and that is very, very important. All right, so today I'm going to give you 5 tips to give the gift of empathy, right? And giving the gift of empathy is giving the gift of a moment by placing your own experiences, your beliefs, your feelings, your emotions. You're going to put those in pause. You're going to put those on pause in order to honor the person's moment, the person that is in front of you. How do we do that? There is a visual that you can look at. So I'm going to give you a minute here to look at the visual. What that visual is a drawer. So think of a piece of furniture. You're looking from the top down. It's a piece of furniture that has a drawer. So you go ahead and you open the drawer, and then you take your you take your world and you place your world there in the drawer for a moment, and you close the drawer so that you can then put your world aside on pause for a moment, and you can concentrate in the person that you are interacting with, the person that you're talking to, so that what that person says catches your attention. So I'm going to give you 5 tips, and we'll start with the first one. And remember that these are tips that you can leverage so that you can improve your ability to honor other people's experiences, and you're going to do that through the gift of empathy. So here we go. Point number 1, or tip number 1, is it's not about you. And this is important because we are so focused on ourselves that we always make things about us. People are telling us something, somebody's saying, hey, Luis, because, I have a meeting tomorrow that is very important to me. I am worried about this meeting. I have to prepare for it. And the person's talking to us for like a few minutes, and then because that meeting is with a client that is from Italy. So like, Italy, oh my God, did you know that I am from Italy? I came from Italy. I went to Italy last month. My brother is in Italy. I went to visit him the other day. We went to Venice. Then I go on and on and on talking about this thing because that's my world. So it's called a trigger, right? Something in when the person says trigger, an activator, right? That was Italy. And then I went on and on with Italy, and I forgot. I didn't really pay attention to what the person was telling me. The person was talking to me about something important, about a client. And so I need to put my world aside for a moment in the drawer so that I don't connect those activators, those triggers, but I actually stay focused on what the person is telling me. So it's not about you. The second tip is timing and context are critical. They're very critical because our brains are always making connections in automatic pilot. But not all connections are good connections. Some connections are actually bad connections to the point where no connection is better than a bad connection. How is that the case? Well, let's suppose that in the workplace, we're talking there, so if I'm a man and a woman says to me, oh, because I work in an airlines, I work in American Airlines. Oh, okay, you are a flight attendant. And the person says, well, I have a lot of friends that are flight attendants, but I am actually the general manager for all operations in Europe and in Latin America. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, because we are making those fast connections and we have to be careful about making those connections, right? Somebody's talking to us and says, oh yeah, because I am Native American. Oh, you're Native American. What a coincidence. I was watching a movie last night, Dancing with Wolves. And the person is like, what? Right? So we can make connections that are wrong connections. Sometimes somebody may say to us, oh, my father went to the hospital, to the doctor, and he was diagnosed with cancer. Oh, cancer. What kind of cancer? Well, I don't know, bone cancer. Oh, that's the same cancer that took my brother, right? So those are wrong connection because that is the last thing that person wants to hear. So we have to be very, very careful about the connections that we make because the timing and the context of those connections are really, really important. Okay. All right. So the next one is that empathy is actually not only about feeling negative feelings with other people. Somebody's sad, they have a loss in their family, and they are sad, and then you feel sad with them. That is only one of the manifestations of empathy. But empathy is not only about feelings, it's also about thoughts, and it's also about experience. And interestingly enough, it's not only about feeling thoughts and experiences that are negative, but also feeling thoughts and experiences that are positive. For example, happiness, excitement. When somebody's celebrating something, somebody's happy because something good happened to them. Through the power of empathy, we can connect with that person and make the decision to feel with that person. And what we feel with them has to be not only their sadness, but we also have to learn to feel their happiness, their excitement, their celebration. So if you're looking for a job, so you and a friend, you don't have a job, any of you, and you're looking for a job, you apply, you don't get the job, but then a friend of yours applies for a job and they get the job. When they come to you and say, hey, I have great news for you, I just got this job, then most people would say, well, good for you, congratulations, because I don't have a job, then I'm not excited. But we need to learn to separate the two things and compartmentalize the two situations. The fact that I don't have a job should not impede me from the ability to join another person in celebrating with them that something good has happened to them, regardless of whether that has happened to me too, right? Because, for example, if I'm having problems in my marriage and I am separating, or if I'm divorcing, and somebody comes to me and says, wow, Luis, I have great news, I just I just got engaged to be married, to get married. I say, well, okay, good for you. I hope it's good for you, right? Because then I am like, I have resentment because it's something good is happening to somebody else and it's not happening to me. No, we need to learn to join that person in something good that is happening to them. So tip number 3 is we need to embrace all feelings and any feelings, not only the feelings of negative feelings, right, but also the positive feelings. Tip number 4 is actually very, very important, which is that we need to let people own their experiences. What this means is that many times, because we are good people and we want the best, for others, when somebody comes to us to share with us that something bad has happened to them, we want to help. And the way that we want to help is we look for ways to communicate to that person that what is happening to them is really not that bad, right? So then they say, at work, for example, they say, hey, what's happening? Paul, he says, well, I am very sad. Why? Why are you sad? Well, because I lost 3 accounts. Oh, you lost 3 accounts. Don't worry about it. Like, we're going to be losing accounts all the time. Forget about it. Like, be happy. What accounts did you lose? Well, I lost McDonald's, Coca-Cola, and Apple. Oh, don't worry about it. There are many. There are thousands of Apples. There are thousands of Coca-Cola. There are thousands of McDonald's. Well, that is not true, because there are not thousands of Apples. There are not thousands of Coca-Cola. There are not thousands of McDonald's. So we are looking for ways to tell the person that what happened to them is really not that bad. But by doing that, we're actually doing a disservice. One, because in a way we're lying, because we're saying that what happened to them is really not that bad when it actually is. And second is because the way that we learn, the way that we human beings learn and heal is by actually going through the pains of the experiences. So when something bad has happened to us, we need to have the opportunity to experience that something bad that happened to us, because we're going to learn and we're going to heal and we're going to grow by actually going through the experience, right? And in a way too, when somebody is sharing their experiences with you, when you tell them that what is happening to them is really not that bad, in a way you are invalidating their feelings, their thoughts and experiences, which in some cases can be even gaslighting, right? Which is when you make somebody, you're basically kind of ignoring or dismissing the experience that somebody is having, right? Somebody calls you from the road in worry and say, oh, I'm calling here from the highway because I have a flat tire. Oh, you have 1 flat tire? Oh, you still have the 3 other tires are good. So, you're good. Only 1 of the 4. So that's how, or you say, hey, my neighbor's son just got killed in a car accident. Oh, no. How many kids did he have? Oh, well, he has 4. Oh, okay. Wow. I was worried. I thought that he was the only one. So we're basically implying that because the person has, 4 other or 3 other kids, then that loss is not that bad. But it really is, because it doesn't matter if he has 1, 3, 5, or 10 kids. The loss of a child would always be something bad regardless, right? And then the last one is we need to be intentional. So we need to be intentional. This one is very important because sometimes we have, we may have good thoughts like, hey, we say to somebody, I'm here for you. I can help you with whatever you want. Give me a call. I'll help you. But then when those persons are actually, when they need our help and they're trying to reach out, then we're not there. Then we don't follow up. We don't really, materialize the help that we are offering. So it is important to always be intentional, which is to follow up with an actual action, right? When we tell someone, so in the example of somebody who lost the account, it would be, to say, hey, you lost those accounts. I'm sorry to hear that. Let's talk about maybe what may have happened. I can give you some tips on how to avoid for that to happen to you, again. And then to be intentional would be to follow up with an action to say, hey, you know what? I have a book at home that I read about, never losing an account, written by so-and-so. What time are you here tomorrow? Are you coming tomorrow? What time are you going to be here? Because I can bring you the book, and I'll be happy to gift you the book so that you know, keep it. And then in personal circumstances, when somebody shares that I'm not feeling well, always offer something, an action. Wow, you're not feeling well. Do you want me, can I get you a glass of water? Can I, would you like some ibuprofen? Can what can I do for you? Can I, help you? Or, but it's actually to not just express to not just express the empathy, but to actually also follow it up with an actual action, which is really, really important. So with that, I am going to get here. So today I talked about emotional intelligence, what it is, right? It's the ability to know our own emotions, it's the ability to motivate ourselves, and to have empathy so we can have more effective social relationships. And then we talked about the 5 components, which were the three self trios, which are self-awareness, self-regulation, and self-motivation. We talked about empathy, we talked about social skills, and then I gave you 5 tips to give the gift of empathy, which you have right now in your screen, which are: it's not about you. Remember, your brain has an automatic pilot function to make you the protagonist or the most important character for every story. And we need to stop our brain from doing that, because we need to allow for it to be about other people as well. It cannot always be about us, right? And the second tip, which is timing and context, are critical. Very important, because our brain is always making connections, and we have to stop our brain from making those connections, because sometimes those connections can be bad connections and they can get us in trouble. Number 3, we talked about the fact that empathy gives us the ability to feel in union with other people, not only the negative feeling, thoughts, and experiences, but also the positive ones. And that is key, when we can join someone else in feeling a positive feeling. And then number 4, let people own their experiences. Don't invalidate people's experiences by telling them that what is happening to them is really not that bad, because it could very well be. And we need to just accompany them in feeling what they're feeling, thinking what they're thinking, experiencing what they're experiencing, so they can feel supported, accompanied, heard, seen, right? And then in number 5 is to be intentional, which is not to use our words only, and not because we feel the empathy, we express the empathy with our words, but it's also important to follow up with an actual action, which is you have when you join someone in feeling what they're feeling, that is called emotional empathy, right? Because you're empathizing with somebody emotionally. Then when you go ahead and express by connecting with what the person is thinking, then that is called cognitive empathy, because you're actually, from an intellectual standpoint, you're trying to understand what the person may be thinking, feeling, or experiencing. And then when you follow up with an action, that is called compassion empathy, which is, in this case, you have the compassion to support the person through an actual action, which makes the difference. So today, I gave you those 5 tips, and I hope they are valuable for you. Congratulations on wanting to be better, to learn, to grow.